Hello, and thank you for tuning in to Kind of Fake News.
Where we don't take ourselves too seriously.
And you can't fact check half of this.
That's right. Thank you all for tuning into our March episode. So much going on, so much to talk about. We always like when you guys tune in with us so you can smile, learn, wander, and wonder with us. Always like to give a shout out to Turn It Up Live for making this all possible.
Turn it up.
Turn it up. So we're gonna have fun today, as we always do. You guys peep my sweater. I wanted to just do something funny. I only use sarcasm periodically. Just wanted to throw that in there.
I like it.
As usual, we always start off with our astrology review with Sarah Sanchez. How are you doing today?
Good. Don't mind my blurry background. I don't know.
She's like, I don't know how to fix it.
Do it on purpose.
Then we always get into after that with our holistic alternatives with me, Selena Bryan. I always have so much fun doing that. I know I get a lot of good reviews on it, and I do listen to all you guys' feedback. And then we always wrap it up with my favorite part here is our conspiracy piece with Jarrett Lasser.
What's
How you doing,
good,
Jarrett?
everybody?
What's good? I always love that part because we really can go down rabbit holes and tangents with that. So.
Oh yeah, we get out of hand.
Yes, and that's why we end up. You guys gotta always tune into our after hours too, where we just kind of take off with that from there. So it's always fun to watch. But we'll start right off with Sarah. What do you have for us in the astrology world?
Pretty neat month. So fun fact, I think it's the only month in 2022 that has no planets retrograde. So we get a little break from retrogrades. So that's cool. But so we start the month right off with a Pisces new moon. And as we know, Pisces is like this dreamy, spiritual, subconscious sort of feel. And new moons are for setting intentions, new beginnings, things like that. So you're going to have a softer emotional experience overall, although you may feel really deeply during this time. Like your intuition will be off the charts, but you'll also be at risk for like absorbing other people's energy a lot and getting really overwhelmed by that. So it's just a really important time to protect your energy, protect your boundaries, because Pisces doesn't know boundaries, right? Our energy just meshes with other people, and our sensitivity to energy is really heightened, so you can really absorb other people's energy. And so you just want to be careful and just be mindful of that. But it is a really good time for creative work or spiritual endeavors. It's and it's beginning and the end of the month is kind of like that. It circles back because on the 6th, Venus and Mars both enter Aquarius. Now, we know Aquarius is like change, uniqueness, doing things differently, the rebel and the freaks and stuff. So now Venus going in, and Venus we know is our love, comfort, desire, beauty, and Mars is the action, fire, anger, power, right? So both of these are going into Aquarius. So during this time, when it comes to Venus being in Aquarius, it could be a time where you really end up, you can really intellectualize your romantic feelings. You'll be very sociable, but it can be kind of cold in that sense. So it can be very analytical. And then, so it's important to remember that softness and vulnerability is not a weakness, because during this time, we might naturally kind of not feel comfortable doing that. So it's important to just be mindful of that. It's also a time where you'll gravitate towards unconventional and unique experiences, especially related to love. So it's just an important time your freedom's going to be really important to you, boundaries and communicating your boundaries, right? So it's just a really important time. You're going to really want your freedom when it comes to love. So just communicate and set the boundaries that you feel comfortable with. And Mars is also in Aquarius. So your energy levels might be very erratic during this time. Although it does give you a boost of confidence, it's kind of like, it's a time where really good change can happen because you get that drive and that motivation to like do and act, and in Aquarius, in different or unique ways. So you might really try things different during this time. But it's important to be mindful that because if your brain isn't stimulated enough, you could get bored very easy in this energy. So just meet yourself where you're at. Give yourself, hold space for yourself to just kind of flow however you want to flow, do things in new ways, and see where it goes from there. And then on the 9th, Mercury enters Pisces. We know Mercury is communication. We know about Pisces, right? Very spiritual, very dreamy. So it kind of shifts back to that dreamy, emotional vibe. So it shifts away from broader ideals and like cold logic and more towards the spiritual unknown side of things. And it's really going to bring your subconscious to the forefront. So you might get like epiphanies about your growth during this time. Your intuition, again, will be even more off the charts. So this is a time where you're really going to want to follow your hunches. You're probably going to make a lot of decisions simply based on a hunch. And it's most likely going to be right during this time because those sensitivities will really be heightened and on point. So it's a very inspired time because our capacity for visualization and imagination is increased by quite a bit. So it can also, though, interrupt your sleep patterns. You could have like really vivid dreams during this time. So if you're kind of sensitive to that, that's definitely could be something that you deal with. But it's really a time that you're going to be more artistic and more creative in general. So it's a really good time to just lean into that because this Venus in Aquarius and Mars in Aquarius before that, it can be a little bit analytical, but really the transits surrounding that are actually really dreamy, artistic, creative. So that first half of the month is really going to be really special. And then on the 18th, the full moon is in Virgo. So, and we know the full moons are like culmination.
I was just going to ask if there's any kind of cool moons happening this month.
Yeah.
So it's in Virgo, and what we know about Virgo is it finds its safety in order and clarity, right? Anyone who knows of Virgo, like they're very organized, very, orderly. And so it's a very subtle and grounded kind of energy, but it's also a time where you don't want to only find your safety in order and, clarity, because it's kind of a time the lesson of it, I guess, would be to embrace life's imperfections, or at least learn to deal with them.
Like see them for what they are.
Exactly, because you're really, during this time, you're really going to want to organize your emotional body, organize your thoughts, and that's what will make you feel grounded and stable, right? But we also have to avoid perfectionism and obsession because we're really at risk for that during this time. Like everything needs to be perfect, right? So it's kind of like finding that balance. And it's really the lesson again is the imperfection, but also just letting things go, trusting the universe. Trusting in the universe is a huge lesson during this time, because Virgo wants to control everything, right? Order, clarity, control. And it kind of shows us we can't always do that. So that's really going to be highlighted. And it's really about finding that balance, right? And this moon also highlights the Pisces Virgo axis, which really is just kind of like with those two aspects, you just kind of want to reflect on your relationship with spirituality and feminism, right? How spiritually, how you relate to all those things that Venus represents, right? What's in your subconscious about beauty and comfort and desire, right? So it's a really good time to do the inner work. Find the beauty in just letting go and letting things run their course without any control from you. And you might find that it's better that way. If you trust the universe, it'll have your back. So that's a really cool full moon. And then end of the month, March 20th, Aries season starts. And it's also on the spring equinox. So it's officially going to be spring, and Aries is fiery, right? The action, the doer. So it's also the astrological new year, in case anyone feels like they need like a do-over from New Year.
Like restart your resolutions again.
Yeah, I need another restart, right? So if you feel that way, technically, astrologically, it is the new year. A new cycle begins with Aries season. So, but this is really a time that is, so Aries is fearless, right? So it's going to be a fearless action taking on your part. It's kind of like your most take charge version of yourself in these energies. So it's super motivated, hopeful. You really get a boost of energy, which makes sense. We all do feel that way anyways around spring. But it's deeper than that, right? So it really goes deep, where you just feel this burst of readiness and wanting to do and wanting to go after things. So it's a time where you're really going to want to go after your desires. Like, we all sit and we want things sometimes, but this is the time where you're going to go after it. But it's also important because Aries is bold and brave, but can also be hot-headed. I'm an Aries moon, so I know a lot about this.
You know, but you can be hot-headed.
Yeah. Think about it. Like, so if anyone watches the podcast that knows me, you know what Aries represents. So, because I'm a Gemini sun, and when you don't know me, I come off like a Gemini when you see the Aries moon.
A little deeper.
Yeah. So it's really about, the lesson here is finding balance between rashness and stagnation. You don't want to be stagnant. You want to take energy on things, but you don't want to be impulsive, right? So you want to just
one of the things that you said that rang out to me in the beginning around the 6th, you commented on the absorbing the energy. Now, is that only for the 6th, or is that going to ring out throughout the whole month of the being like careful of the energy that you're going to absorb and those who you're around?
That's kind of really more during the new moon.
Okay, so that's more towards like the 6th than the.
Well, yeah, and because it's when it's Pisces, it's really, any Pisces undertones are going to have that, right? But the new moon in Pisces is really going to amplify it. But once we really move into Aries season, and especially the full moon being in Aries towards the end of the month, it really switches up to more, it's kind of like your energy projecting out rather than the passivity. of like the Pisces. You can get so overwhelmed and you just become passive. You don't want to, because there's just too much that you feel that you don't do. Aries really gives that fire from the inside that pushes out, and you go forward and you do things. So
yeah, it seems like in the beginning of the month to make sure you're surrounding yourself around really positive people so that you don't have this negativity rubbing off onto you. So, you know, make sure that you're around positive people, and everyone knows who in their life and their group friends are the positive people to be around. So start like that. There's a lot of intuition that I hear ringing out throughout this month, and trusting the universe. So mixing what you're feeling the universe is doing with your own intuition, and, you know, not second guessing yourself too much, it seems like, for this one. And it's part of the spiritual endeavor.
Yeah, it's almost like a boiling up, like you're really going deep subconscious. You're feeling things, right? You're feeling direction, you're feeling intuition. And then towards the end of the month, you have that fire to act on it. So it's kind of really seamlessly moves through where you're going to think about a lot of things, rethink things, want to do things in different ways. And then you're going to have that fire towards the end of the month to go after it, but not like a psycho. So
not like a psycho, but no, that's why I found it interesting, because of the 20th being the equinox and it being like a motivation, take charge kind of time period. It makes me think about, because like the New Year's being the January 1st, statistically they say that within the first 3 months of the year, the majority of people's resolutions they fall off of. So this would be a good time to get remotivated in whatever your New Year's resolution was that you're probably starting to lack in. Maybe it was to quit smoking or to start working out more or to eat healthier or whatever it is. This is probably around a time period that you're starting to fall off of it and not take it serious. Come the 20th, that's when you want to get back into your motivation. Like, you know what, let me not fall off of what my goals were for this year. So it's something good to keep in mind during the equinox.
Yeah.
So I thought that was kind of cool to think about that.
If I may announce, I'm not sure if it was a goal for the New Year's or not, but I have quit smoking cigarettes.
Hey,
Really?
Only vape now.
There you go. Progress.
Wow, I'm so proud of you.
Hell yeah.
It's not easy.
But I don't feel as good as I could be because I'm vaping. You know what I mean? But I do
Then
feel
that'll
a
be
little
next up,
better.
maybe.
But I know I could be great if I had, you know, if I stopped vaping too. So
well, maybe the 20th will motivate you to cut down on the vape.
yeah, because I just breathe through these things now, like fucking I'm scuba diving or something. But...
Scuba diving.
You're like, no. Have it right there. You can have it all the time.
Yeah, I'll be in like Tops and Walmart, like blazing on the vape, like crazy.
Looking around,
blowing through your shirt. I saw someone at some sports game, I can't remember, but someone in the stands, and it showed them take their vape and put it through their shirt and smoke it like that. And then blow in it. It's so funny. It's so funny.
You're like wearing a COVID mask and there's just like smoke
coming out from
floating off of your head.
But
I so at a birthday party earlier, and I literally every time I go to the bathroom, I don't even have to pee, but I'm like, I'm gonna go to the bathroom really quick because I'll take a few hits of my vape. And I planned on quitting cigarettes, and then very shortly after using the vape to just transition to quit smoking all the way. And it's really turned into me just vaping for the last few years. So
yeah, and then also like you can, I know somebody who they switched to vaping and then they weaned down on the percentage of nicotine in their vape every few months. They dropped it down a little bit until they got to like zero nicotine vaping. So that's an option for people out there.
My question would be, were they addicted to the mouth thing though?
Yeah, they still vape, but it's just zero nicotine at this point.
Because what I worry about a lot, because a lot of the time, like, you know what they say where it's not yes, the nicotine is what's addictive, but it's the other stuff in it.
The motion of it also.
Yeah, the feeling of the smoke in your lungs or the vapor in your lungs, like
Yeah, but that also the unhealthy part of it is all those other chemicals that go into it, right? Like cigarettes, it's not the nicotine, it's all the other shit that's in there. And I wonder, I've always wondered that with vapes. I'm like, is it a lot more healthy? I mean, I would guess because it's not smoke, it is vape, but
Have you
I'm
ever
sure
seen
there's
the list of the shit that's in cigarettes?
It's
There's like
long and it
rocket
runs to the
fuel in
floor.
it and like
So
urea and
and that it makes so much sense to me. And I definitely think cigarettes are definitely worse than vapes because I remember how I felt when I would smoke a cigarette, especially when I got pancreatitis. And each time I would start smoking a cigarette, it started immediately hurting. And this was like leading up to
your
going
body's
to the
rejecting
hospital.
it right away.
Yeah, and what happened is literally having that inflamed or having that condition where you can feel it more already. Each cigarette, it's like I could feel exactly what it does to my organs. Like each time it goes into my body, it's hurting my organs like that. I can just feel it this time. So I'm like, oh my God. And I would feel so great sometimes. I would go to smoke a cigarette and then you're just like, I'm heavy. Like my blood feels gross. Like just my muscles don't feel as good. I feel weaker. And I don't get that with vapes really. So sometimes
And
not
that's
that
what
it's
sucks about it. A lot of people don't quit things until it actually starts to negatively affect them.
yeah, it's
Right.
true.
People just think that what happens to other people isn't going to happen to them.
Right.
and not
It
that
catches
it's
up
any
eventually.
justification, but I think the cigarettes, like from when I started smoking, like even Marbs or Newports, tasted far different than whatever they are now. You
Right.
know, and I know
Some
it in
formula.
between the time they had like made New York state laws that it has to be like certain paper on the cigarettes, and I'm sure there's all sorts of laws with what kind of chemicals they're allowed to put in them, and who
Yeah.
knows.
A
There's a
lot of
certain amount
mandates
of
and
rat
stuff you have to
shit in the
follow now.
fucking tobacco, like
Yeah.
Right. Reasoning too, right?
They used to,
know what?
before people realized it was bad, they didn't really have like any guidelines for the companies to use. They were just raking in tons of money.
and it's
Yeah. People used to be okay to smoke when you were pregnant. You could be smoking while you're pregnant out in public and it's no big deal.
The public didn't know, but the companies had it known before everybody else did.
There's
Right.
that
Oh my God.
documentary about the Marlboro man who never got paid like any money for that character that he portrayed. They made
Really?
billions of dollars off of that dude, and he died from cancer. Obviously,
Right.
like the famous like cowboy fucking guy smoking mad
Right.
bogeys.
Yeah. I can't believe they didn't. So they really didn't pay him at all?
Did he
Not to the capacity that you think the tobacco company could have paid him. You know,
Right.
like that
You know
that
what?
one movie too, Thank You for Smoking. That's an awesome smoking documentary, loosely based on a true story.
Wow.
Where
Yeah.
they,
You know what?
That
You
one
know
sounds
what?
familiar.
You know what drives me nuts though is that meat is the same level carcinogen as cigarettes, and people aren't talking about that enough yet. I don't think.
and it's handled just as poorly, like
Well,
in the
yeah, any
factories where they're
industry,
making it.
right? Any industry that's making that amount of money, they're paying a lot of people off to make it so the negatives of it isn't getting out there. But I was watching a few documentaries of like mothers with children who, you know, got different diseases and stuff from the meat that have been taking all these companies to court and losing, and they're just trying to get the word out there because people don't realize,
Yeah,
you know,
it's
it's
nuts.
it's out there. It's out there. You just gotta
It's
search
nuts.
for it. The sad part.
It really is nuts what meat and dairy do to you, and it's so funny because people will be like, not to be that guy, but our teeth. You can tell by our teeth we were made to eat meat, and I debunked that. Like you know what I mean? When you like lick those, and I'm like, literally, we have like, look at a fucking lion's teeth. We do not have that. Most of them are fucking flat. There's like one like that because you need for ripping vegetables of you fucking bitch. Like it makes me so mad. Because people are like, we're made to drink milk.
We're getting after hours spicy.
I know, yeah, I know. But really, because people are like, we're made to drink milk. We drink our mother's milk, not fucking cow's milk. Sorry,
well, you know what? It's a perfect segue into our holistic alternative piece, unless you still had stuff left for astrology.
Nope, we're good.
Okay. So we're going to get on over into, I wanted to touch on something that, because a lot of people have been liking like the regular stuff around your house topics. So I chose something that is a very commonly ate, additive and in all of our households that people use sometimes every single day, which is ketchup. Everybody puts ketchup on their burgers, on meat, on everything. Some people slather anything with ketchup. So I figured since it was common, I know there's alternative uses for it too. So I figured it was a good one to touch on. But ketchup basically has no nutritional value except for the fact that there's tomatoes in it. And even tomatoes, like too much tomatoes in a high quantity or excessiveness can cause like swelling and joint pain too. So even too much tomatoes aren't good for you. But ketchup itself has such high acidity and it has such high quantities of fructose corn syrup that it causes diabetes, high blood sugar, heart disease, all the main things that are killing, especially Americans, is all in ketchup. So, you can go online and find healthier alternatives, or you can always just make some kind of like homemade, so if you want to do just like a more natural homemade ketchup, you would just take like a pureed tomato, apple cider vinegar, honey, onion and garlic powder and mix it up and you can make your own homemade, ketchup. A lot of these big companies, especially like Heinz, have such high quantities of things that aren't good for you just to make it taste good. So it's my alternative to it, but I also wanted to get some other common alternative uses that you can use for the ketchup that you have. One cool thing is you can use it on mosquito bites. It changes like the pH of your skin and dries it out as well. So it can help your mosquito bites heal and for the itch to go down.
You used to do that with like toothpaste too, right?
Yeah. Toothpaste
for like a bee sting.
Yeah, because it dries it out for toothpaste, and ketchup is another good alternative.
I had heard toothpaste on pimples too.
Yep. Yeah, I think I might have did toothpaste one before, and mosquito bites was on there. But ketchup is one of the alternatives also. Also, it's very good. It's actually bad that it can do this, but it's really good at cleaning pans, pots and pans. You just add extra sugar into it, put it on your pan, like them tough to scrub pans, and you just leave it on there for 15 minutes and go back and rinse it off and it'll take all that right off of it.
Really?
Yep. You can also clean copper with it. Rusty old silverware. If you just leave the ketchup sitting on it for like 15 minutes, it'll take all of that right off and make it look brand new, which is kind of scary that it can do that.
But it's crazy what we eat, right? Like, and I've been thinking, even being vegan, like that doesn't mean you're safe. It doesn't mean you're healthy because even just because something's vegan doesn't mean it doesn't have high fructose corn syrup or fucking,
even like Pepsi and shit, you can like dump down your drain to like clean a clogged drain or something,
I think it's like the cola products. You can also, if you like left it, if you like poured it on like your car and left it, it would take the paint right off of your car.
I remember reading they took
this is something we put in our body.
They took all the different sodas, like little cups of them, and then they took human teeth and dropped a tooth in each cup of soda to see how fast it would take to dissolve the teeth. And root beer was the one that did it the quickest. It did it in like a few days. The whole tooth was like completely gone. Yeah.
That's one of the ones I like too.
Like I don't ever Dr. Pepper too.
And Dr. Pepper's my other favorite one. Great.
Mine too,
I don't drink a lot of pop though for that reason that I can feel it like messing with me. So I don't even.
There are times where, so as a vegan, there are times I eat super clean, super healthy. And then other times I really kind of fall off the wagon, still eating vegan, but not as healthy. I'll drink the pops that I can drink, or I'll eat the shitty stuff that I can eat, you know, and I can 100% feel a difference. I remember one day I ate kind of crappy and I literally woke up feeling hungover the next day. And then I remembered, I'm like, oh my God, I used to feel like this all the time when I was very sick. I woke up every single day. I felt hungover every day. It was hard for me to get up to my alarm. I was miserable in the morning because I was so uncomfortable.
Yeah, fast food does that to me.
Yeah.
When you go long enough without eating fast food, say you go like 4 months without eating fast food, and then you go and you start eating fast food burgers, you will feel the effects immediately.
I think it was Taco Bell.
Especially Taco Bell.
That'll mess anyone's
you
day
can
up.
get black beans instead of meat, you know what I mean? But it still is all so bad. And I drank a ton of pop because I go like, when I fall off, I fall off.
Did you ever try one of those vegan burgers from the fast food places? Or all the burgers like that? They're like all made of plants and they just make them taste like meat.
I've tried some, like the Beyond Burger, I think is one, and then there's another.
The the Impossible Whopper is what I would get one there.
Yeah, no bueno.
I don't remember. I could kind of tell the difference, but like you can tell the difference, but like they do a pretty good job at making it taste like burgers.
Yes, they do. Because Whoppers were my favorite.
Because you wouldn't be all that mad to have like 100 different like plants that it took to make your plant burger, right?
Right.
Well, if it's like an actual burger that took like 100 different cows to make it, you know, it's a little like weird, you know.
Yeah.
And then the last hack I had for the ketchup was for dry and cracked skin. So you can use it like, again, just add a bunch of sugar to it to give it that gritty feel. You can rub it on your hands and then wash your hands. But a really good one is if you take like a giant, like say take like a plastic bag that your foot could fit in, and then you put the ketchup in there, put sugar in there, you put your foot in there, and then you just leave your foot kind of soaking for like 15 minutes in this mixture, and then jump in the shower, and then all the cracks on the back of your heels will just disappear.
Oh, nice. Good.
So it's really
I love that because my feet get really cracky. I want to say in the winter, but also the summer. For some reason, it's worse in the winter. But I have to go. My feet are out. I keep them really smooth, you know, but I have to every single day, every shower, the pumice stone, I have to go in there and do it. And if I miss a couple days, I can feel it. I don't know.
Try the ketchup alternative.
Is this because there's chemicals in like the ketchup, or is it what the ketchup's composed of mimics chemicals?
I think it's just because of the high acidity of it.
Yeah, that's cool.
It's kind of like you're just like aciding the skin off, the dead skin off.
Yeah.
Because that'd be better than like buying like, you know, whatever bottle of what from whatever Johnson and Johnson company.
I mean, it's more natural. It's not like there's a ton of different like products in it. When you're buying something from like Johnson and Johnson, they have all these other chemicals that you can't even pronounce how these chemicals are said on their labels. So I'd say it's a better bet, even though ketchup's not probably good for you to ingest. You can still use it for all these other uses. So that's why I still wanted to say the pros of it and the cons of it. So that's my holistic alternative.
Nice.
So on to my favorite part. What do we have for our conspiracy, Jarrett?
Well, I did want to like, you know, get into some Anunnaki stuff, you know, and just educate and inform about that. But in the light of the current events, I couldn't help but want to discuss that stuff with you guys and just
talk about Russia,
what we could project happening, you know, all
right, hang on, let me get a water before we start this. Hang on.
She's like, I need water for this. I mean, it's crazy because with the whole stuff going on in Russia, when everything first started, I was kind of ignoring it. I was like, oh, it's just like, you know, I'll talk. But now things are escalating to the point where now I have to actually start paying attention to the news and what's going on, because it's escalating a lot faster than I really thought it would.
I wonder how they're going to sell it in our news, because I feel like if it's super heavy in our news, then we probably wouldn't be too worried about there being like something big happening here in the near future. But if it's quiet in the news, that would be kind of troublesome. Like if you look at any of those videos that are circling around of, the war or battles or whatever you want to call them, it looks like modern America right now. It's the same. It's not different at all. It's not like a desert or anything
Right.
like that. It's like
And it's not just
7-Elevens and shit are
military.
getting blown up.
Right.
There's
Regular
neighborhood
civilians.
militias running around, shooting people. And if anyone were ever to harm our country, more than likely in an invasion type style, it would be Russia or China or a combination of the two, and it's on, they said any sanctions would be taken as, like a war
A sign of
interest.
war.
Yeah. So, and any
It's
country
really
that does this or provides aid would are seeking consequences unlike they have ever experienced in their history.
Well, we already started sanctions though, didn't we?
But think about it like this could be just a whole playground, right? Where they're all in on it. American administration, Chinese, Russian administration. And this could be just a thing to spin away from COVID. We can see how
There
fast
could be
this
a lot
shit
of things,
disappears
'cause
from the
think
news
about
now.
think about how crazy it is. So hang on. So Russia invades Ukraine. Everyone's heartbroken, upset, scared, and this is like a huge deal. And then all of a sudden, New York lifts the mask mandate. The kids don't have to wear masks to school anymore. So it's really funny that you say it's like a transit. It's to spin away from COVID because they need something new. It's like COVID has ran its course. How much more people are chill about it now? So now they have something else
to get
scare the
riled up
fuck out of
about.
us.
Well, a lot of insurance companies have been coming out saying since taking the vaccine that has increased deaths by 40% or made those that have taken them 40% more likely to die or something like that.
There's also statistics like
You're like
30% of
out
people
with
who've gotten
that?
it. Well, no, there's statistics that 30% of people who've gotten the vaccine have had some type of negative effect with their health. Not necessarily death. I mean, there are death statistics too, but not just death, but some type of medical something negative has happened to them.
So like now you're not going to be able to get health insurance if you got vaccinated or life insurance.
did it on purpose.
Crazy.
That's wild. I mean, the whole COVID thing.
But yeah, and there's a
crazy how I guarantee you, like this huge fight about like anyone who said anything bad about the vaccine. It's like Facebook's like misinformation. Like here's information about like it's like how dare you? And then they're probably really going to turn around and be like, yeah, that's not great that you got it. Like.
Well, they can only suppress information for so long because there's groups of people dedicated to uploading these articles and videos on a regular basis that get ripped down from all these platforms. And now that the news about COVID being completely constructed from multiple viruses is starting to circulate, and reach like television news of this being a considered possibility amongst the general public, like that's pretty intense.
How fucking
it's purposeful murder. Or how about the 2017 patent by Moderna for the COVID vaccine itself?
You remember when I talked about
the virus
that?
itself? It's
you remember I talked about that? I talked about that when we had our podcast when COVID first.
I remember.
And I was like, listen, there's in the video that I was listening to with all the facts and the patent numbers and everything, like 2 months after I talked about it on here, I went back to find the video and it was like off the internet. Like you couldn't find it. So thankfully I had already saved it on my phone so I could replay it for myself, but you couldn't find it anywhere. They took it down. It was like banned all over the internet.
Yeah, they patented the fucking code for COVID 3 years before having to make the vaccine, and then already had vaccines in production before it was even in the news to be even happening to begin with, like a all
And they wanted to
preset plot,
comply.
almost like it's a big pharma move, like the shit that they did with Oxycontin years ago.
Yep.
It's just on a way bigger
And
scale.
it's not the first
So
time
they're
these things
responsible for the
happened.
opiate epidemic, and now they're responsible for this. And
Right.
one could say that that's a biological weapon
Right.
that has
Well, you
been.
just named 3 different things that have happened, came out after the fact, brought up distrust in our government, but yet people still keep just believing that everything that the government says is honest and true.
It's because it takes work to connect the dots. People have to try to link information here and there, and you have to go down these rabbit holes to get enough information to actually put it together, and they keep it that way. But it is nuts because they really do, like, it went too fucking seamlessly into mask mandates being lifted and then fucking fear of war. Like, because
Well, it's either COVID's covering up an incoming war, or the incoming war is going to be covering up COVID, or they're both a ruse for something else beyond that.
Right, like this could have been in the works. Because I just think it's funny that, like, okay, Trump was like in with Putin beforehand, and then this stuff happened once Biden got in office. But then there's also the stuff with Biden's son, with stuff with Ukraine. Like, there's
When
a lot of
people
other
also think that they're safe here, when it was only a year and a half, 2 years ago or so, that we were under subtle martial law. It wasn't even a real kind of martial law, but it was enough to kind of like freak people out,
right.
you know. And now there's bombs being dropped with incoming threats from superpowers in the world, and no one really takes into consideration that, you know, if there were an attack on the country, I think that would have been allowed by our country more than likely, you know, because there's NORAD and missile defense systems and all that. But if there were one to get away with it, would it not be Russia or China? If, you know, 20 years ago, people were able to hijack planes and crash them into towers.
right.
So if
Well,
you
I'd
don't
be a little
believe in
worried,
conspiracy theories at all, you should really be scared to death. And then if you do believe in conspiracy theories, you should kind of probably be prepping, realizing something's going to happen and or manifest in some way, shape, or form.
Well, this is a big thing. In the past with world wars, a lot of times America doesn't get involved until later on, until something happens to us to get us involved. There's other countries that would want us to get involved, but they need to give us a reason to get involved.
Right.
So then something major happens, like the sinking of the Lusitania or Pearl Harbor, or something to force us into it. So even if, like, we don't have nothing to do with this war happening and other countries really want us to get into it, somebody's going to make something bad happen for America to make us jump into something.
Right.
You know, so I would be more worried that something's going to happen to us just as a reaction to trying to force us into the war.
Right.
Well, cyber attacks have been recently discussed quite a bit by our politicians and even our president, where he gave, it was 18, he said there was 16, but 18 crucial points of cyberspace that if are infiltrated or touched for any reason, it's a national security issue, and we will descend war upon your country over it. And they give a list to them, you know,
like, this is what we consider
these
war.
are our target areas that we don't want you to fuck with. If you fuck with them, it'll cause us a lot of like, so you're just giving people a map to fuck
how
things up,
right? Almost like they want it to be that way and not. It's almost like, okay, if you're gonna attack us, do it this way, and this is the reason we would go to war, just to try to keep you from doing like a physical attack.
I mean, I don't want to sound biased, but I don't know how different the current situation would be with foreign relations if there wasn't a presidential shift. You know, I don't know how much weight Biden holds politically on TV versus a character like Trump, or just someone different in general than Biden, you know.
Well, for all
Even
you know, since Trump had it in with Putin, he probably like told Putin like, all right, just don't do anything until I'm out of office. Like they might have had a deal
that
going
would have
on.
been a deal that I made. Shit. I
Wait
don't know.
until I'm out of office, and then you
I mean, it's all
attack
politics,
Ukraine. Like,
right? It's gonna go bad one way or the
You've
other.
been
If you can keep it straight as long as you're in there, you're gonna keep it straight, because obviously whatever relationship there was or secret anything went south as soon as he left. You
right.
know, but hasn't it always been south, or has it all just been a game? Because those people were closely connected with the Clintons, but they spin the reverse in the television, you know. But once the
One thing that
documents
I
had
I'm
came
willing
out,
to
it
for
was the
sure.
Clintons that were, you know, elbows with Russians. So it's
I mean,
and then how much does that shit even really matter at the end of the
we
day?
always try to keep
Right.
some type of, you know, communication to try to, you know, keep like open talks open, even with countries that we don't get along with the most, to have a
Well,
diplomatic
Russia
stance,
still
try to
has a
avoid these
seat.
things.
I don't know if it's NATO or the UN, but one of them, Russia still has a seat there despite they're dropping bombs on and killing people. Like,
Trying to talk to them. They're trying to talk them out of
and
it.
to the extent that that's happening, we don't even know. We only know what they show on TV, and obviously they don't show the majority of the death and devastation that's over there, but it could be wrong from either point of view. There's
Right.
no discernible way to tell the truth when people in fucking China and Russia, we already know that their internet and news and everything is written, doctored, and filtered before they get it.
Right.
know?
And like for all you know, like what is Russia telling their soldiers? You know, they're telling them, oh, go over there, defend our borders, and they get over there and they realize that they're the ones attacking. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, that's what I've heard people that like multiple people have been saying, that they're
But
going
America would like us to believe that those people don't have a built-in conscience because they were
Right.
born and raised communists. If it's
Right.
China, South Korea, you know, Russia, they're all bad. Putin's bad. They're all fucked, you know.
Well,
But
yeah,
when
because
really
the
how much of our business
ties
is it?
that they have, that Ukraine has with Russia, like they have like family people in Ukraine,
Yeah, they
have
live
family in Russia, people in
across.
Russia have family in Ukraine. So it's like they're in Ukraine, they were just shocked. They never ever
That would happen.
Yeah,
Because their cultures and
So-
traditions are so similar. It's almost kind of like if we went to war with Canada. Like, there's people that like live in Canada and come work over here. Like,
Well, it's
trying
like
to
a
make
Desert
people
Storm
fight who
Iraq
cares
war
about each other.
situation, just on a much bigger scale. You know,
They're
Saddam
not
Hussein
wanting
was
to fight.
smaller. These are now superpowers of the country that are of the planet that are now doing this. You know, all because they don't want to sit at the
Yeah.
table of
You-
corrupt
They
bullshit.
just all
Putin
were,
doesn't
"No,
want to
we're
sit
not
at a
fighting."
table of corrupt bullshit. That's not saying that he's a good guy. He's just a G that recognizes bullshit and doesn't get along with it. So now this circle doesn't like him, you know, just like
Right.
Saddam Hussein.
I mean, obviously he's going about the wrong way, but there's obviously things that are pissing him off that they're not like letting everybody know. You know what I mean? There's probably other stuff going on that he's just like, but at the same time, he could just be pulling like a Hitler. Like, will he stop at Ukraine? Say he does take over Ukraine. Is he going to stop there? Is he going to keep moving? He's going to keep moving over more stuff. You know?
He seems like the type of dude that's going to keep moving, right?
Right. So
But
it's
if
kind of
you know
like
his history. He's like a I don't even know. They're probably going to be making movies about that dude. He was in the KGB.
right.
He like literally stole Russia to be the leader of the country.
Oh yeah.
But Ukraine's not all that different. We are an ally with Ukraine because they are allegedly ran by a democracy. When their leader locks up political opponents and kills their families and does all that same shit.
Right.
You know,
Well, see, that's why, like, if you like look at the sentiment of America, it's very divided with this. You got a lot of Americans that are like, we need to get over there and we need to jump into it before it spreads, and you know, and then you have the rest of America being like, okay, well, this isn't our war, this is their war. Like, why are we gonna risk our American soldiers to go try to fight somebody else's borders. And like both sides have points to them, you know, both sides of it. I mean, like if with Nazi Germany, if America jumped in sooner, would they have not have taken over as much ground? You know what I mean? Like, would we have successfully stopped?
This is a country that may seriously be ready to drop nuclear bombs somewhere
He's
on
already
the planet.
threatened it. He said any
And
country
that-
that wants to get involved, he's like, I'll make them into ashes.
Like, and you remember
That's-
like
and
like
like that-
Japan, man, like.
And that's what it makes me wonder too, is like, what if it is a ploy to scare people? Because if there's anything that'll get you shaking in your boots or feeling unsafe, it's talk about nuclear bombs, right? Like, it's just like, even hearing it is, I'm like, oh,
I feel like people are so far away from the history that they don't even register like what that means when a nuclear bomb strikes.
Right. Well, it's like, remember back in the day when they used to have drills in school of, okay,
Yeah.
you hear the sirens, you get under your desk and you put your head down, and like, luckily we didn't grow up in a time period where we had bomb drills in that fashion, but who knows if our kids are going to end up having to do that because of how far things get with us. You know what I mean?
That's why when you see them, those old school signs on like old jails and old schools and old public buildings, they had the fallout shelters built
Yeah.
into them too, and the
Mhm.
siren goes off in the little
Yeah.
town. And
Yep, and you have
You
your
know
whole,
what's-
and then people started building bomb shelters everywhere back when it was a threat in the past, and then that kind of disappeared, except for those doomsday preppers.
like, and
Right.
even if nothing bad does happen, you can already see how it's impacting things with the gas prices rising.
Right.
It's going to make food costs go up, you know, and potentially some would say it's the beginning of the bankruptcy of America.
Well, you
all
saw
these
how
things
everyone
are going to
acted just
play
with
out.
toilet paper with COVID. Imagine how people are going to act when if something serious does happen. I mean, we can't even figure out how to like.
Yeah,
You know what?
so if COVID happens, meanwhile this happens, right? You're going to lose your option to work, and then food prices and gas prices are going to rise simultaneously. There's a shortage on stimulus money. Isn't going to happen again, you know, unless
Right.
they just decide to start printing that shit out. Like, so
Well, the high gas prices might push people even harder towards this alternative energy, solar powered, electric cars, because there's a lot of people that were dragging their feet on that. Not just the people who are making money from gas, but a lot of people are just stuck in the old ways and don't want to switch to electric cars
Right.
or solar or whatever. But this
Yeah.
might help people make that shift more when they see, you know, the prices at the gas pump go up.
I'm not
I like
against
think-
solar energy and electric cars, but I don't think your car should lose the option to operate on gas.
Well,
And that's just
yeah, they have a
because of
hybrid
any
now.
kind of emergency or what,
Right.
in the
Our whole
event
grid
of
could go
war,
down.
in the
Yeah.
electrical
Right.
grid's attacked or goes down, the infrastructure of America is garbage to begin with, you know.
Mhm.
So we can't really, like, if there were really boots on the ground and bombs dropping here, that would be just something terrible.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah,
don't
but
know.
like if everybody's household had like their own generators and they plug their cars in at their own house and you didn't need any stations or anything
Yeah.
like
I
know.
like to think, and I feel like I need to think, or it
Are
kind
they
of
gonna
just
like give everybody cars though? Like,
right.
so when the switch happens, or like, I don't, how do you get all of them things in the houses too?
Right.
You know, and then ripping
I
up.
wonder
They
if
have
it
stuff
would
that they're coming out
be-
with.
I wonder if it would just be the push that we need to start going in that direction, like actually going in that direction. And I like to think it makes sense to, it feels better to think that things like this will actually end up for a better purpose. Also, the other thing is everyone should watch Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind. You will not be disappointed. It is so
Is that the throwback one from back in the
Is
day?
that the dual movie
No,
with the
it's
footage
new
and the
one.
movie at the same time?
It's like more like a documentary. Do you know
Yeah.
Dr.
And they like play like the cop footage like throughout the movie, like the police cam footage.
I don't think so. No, it's like a newer one. It's on YouTube, the entire movie. You can search it, Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind. It's like 2 hours long. It's much more modern than those. I think it's from 2019 or something, or 2020.
No, I haven't seen it then.
It's fascinating. It literally, and you guys know how much I talk about aliens, right? And this is what kind of like, it will pique your interest and kind of wake you up. And this is where they talk about. So Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind is human initiated contact. It's called CE5. And by meditating, right, large groups of people can get together and consciously communicate. They get into meditation.
Dr. Greer.
Dr.
Yeah, that's what she said.
Greer. Yep. And they can call in extraterrestrial contact because they communicate telepathically. That's how you're going to reach them. And he found this out, right? And it's so interesting because in this movie, they talk about how a lot of extraterrestrials came here after Hiroshima because we affect more than just our planet when it comes to
on the nuclear level, or, right. Stuff like that.
And it affects multiple dimensions, they say, and it rings throughout the universe. So
from splitting the atom.
Right. They say lots of extraterrestrials came in and have been monitoring Earth. That's the entire reason they say the vibrations are rising. People are collectively waking up because that's pretty much the goal of these species, because they want our world to evolve, right? And it's so funny because they tell these stories about in the military how the aliens, they're the ETs, would like fuck with them, where ETs like post up around nuclear bases, like they're always there. Like soldiers would say,
I mean, the news has already released footage of, they won't necessarily admit it's aliens, but stuff that they're like, hey, we used to say it was a weather balloon, but we actually don't know what that was. Like, we haven't identified it. So that's already came out. So it's not.
Do you think the first nuclear bomb was us?
Just make it look like crackpots. You know what I mean? So that's why the
info is out here. The first bomb was us figuring out how to split the atom and make a bomb, or it was reversed alien technology, and then we now have this weapon and we used it.
They have already reverse engineered 0-point energy, like alien type transporting, like UFOs. And you could see a UFO in the sky and it literally could be terrestrial because we have reverse engineered that shit already. But it says that, so the part I like the most about that is that there were these soldiers that said they, the aliens would always be posted up around. And
these are American soldiers?
I'm not sure. I can't remember. I think it might have been, could have been in another country, but or I don't know where, but yeah, who knows. But they said that basically what happened is they were communicated telepathically, and they were kind of saying to them, they were like, please do not choose to go full scale, like apocalyptic, like, humanity ending.
That makes me wonder. Ever since the start of this Russia stuff, we're going to start seeing a lot more people seeing sightings.
Yeah, well, probably because they literally said they post up around there, and they said they communicated with them telepathically, said, please do not destroy this beautiful planet that God has created. But if you choose to go full scale, destroying the earth, nuclear weapons, we can and will intercept and stop most of them. That's not the only story. There was also, why can't I remember? So, okay, a nuclear base, the ET ships came in, were hovering around a bit. They literally activated, no kill codes, no nothing. They activated this nuclear weapon. It came up and out and ready for launch. bypassing every single kill code that you would have needed. And then they got it ready for launch. Everyone's shitting their pants, right? Like, how crazy is this? And then they put it back in, disarmed it, and flew away. Basically saying, you think you have control over these? Like, you don't. And it's so fun because they're so much more advanced than us. So it's kind of just like, I don't know, like they show them, they post up around these nuclear bases and they show them that they're far more advanced.
I'm just thinking about that part on Independence Day when all the people are on the top of the building, like except for the aliens, and they just get blown up.
Well, I know I'm reading
Yes,
you know what though? The
Russia's-
government has the technology. The government has the technology to possibly do that. They talk about in this movie as well how they've staged. The government has reverse engineered UFO technology, and they have staged abductions because their MO is to paint them as a threat so that we would be okay with whatever sacrifice it took for interplanetary war. But when that's not the case at all, like, yes. So a lot of the documentaries have said, yes, certain ETs have their own agendas. There are certain things they benefit, whether it's from our energy, from our evolution on a karma basis. They get something out of it, right? It's not that they don't get anything out of it, but they're far more advanced and they're not here to harm us. You know what I mean? Like,
So
they're
I wonder
not.
when it comes to like making a deal with your soul, your spirit, or your vibes, you know, and they say like you can sell your soul to a fucking demon or a devil or align yourself with a saint or a guardian angel. If that's
Okay.
really happening with like a alien frequency of some kind, and we just interpret it through these old archaic ideas of ours.
Of all we know,
Because it would be crazy to have a universe or a world that we live in comprised of multiple different kinds of aliens. And then at the same time, we have ghosts and angels, and demons, and
Right. There is like
multi-dimensional creatures. And
well, they say that that's why a lot of the time why we don't always see spaceships in the sky, because they're in other dimensions too. They can materialize. So a lot of sightings they've seen, and on this movie, Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind, I'm telling you, it'll blow your mind. There's video sightings that shows a fucking portal opening and all of these beings coming in.
The thing that's hard with it is that nowadays it's so easy to fake things that people really are going to have to start seeing these things for themselves. And I think that sightings are going to be more prevalent to the point where you're going to hear it from people that you personally know. It's going to start being so common that it's not going to be just like, oh, I don't believe
I've
it.
seen tons of stuff in the sky throughout the past year, more so than I ever have in my life before. From
I seen
lights
something
to
last year in the
moving
sky, I couldn't believe
stars to weird, just the sky not looking like it always has. I could be crazy, but I'm pretty positive.
Because that's what the entire movie is for. Is they're like they say like the end half of the movie literally talks about. They have an app. It's free. It's called CE5 Contact. And he's like, anyone can do it. You don't need money. You don't need to go to a special place. You don't need anything. People can just do this just because you just need to have your mind and heart aligned and have a pure, innocent heart about it. Otherwise, they won't come. So if you're scared or you have negative feelings, like if they get close and someone gets scared, they will go away. They respect people. They're like hundreds of thousands or I don't know how many thousands and thousands.
That's assuming that there's only one kind.
Well, there is multiple kinds. There's many kinds.
There could be a whole war that we don't know about happening on a plane that we don't even understand yet. You know?
Oh, they say, oh yeah.
It's been said that there is
storyline up there as well. You know what I mean? There's contracts. There's diplomacy, like agreements on that level too. But basically the whole entire point in the movie is they're like, we need to overwhelm them because they're going to try and put out a narrative, and we need enough people experiencing this that they can't lie. everyone needs to experience it themselves and just overwhelm the government with everyone knowing and everyone experiencing it for themselves.
Like, who's to say that these polytheistic religions didn't come from there being multiple types of aliens that cultures have encountered, and they just considered them all different types of gods? You know what I mean?
Right.
'Cause they're
Yeah.
so different from each other.
Yeah.
And they probably put in tons of money to suppress any kind of information, whether it's religious institutions or the government, because as soon as that's like solidified public knowledge that there's visitors of any kind or whatever that there is, they lose like a huge hand of control just over the
Oh, yeah.
mind in general,
That's the
not even
whole-
the physical, you
Kinda.
know?
We started kind of with talking about Russia, kind of moved into aliens. Now, like, I thought that maybe it would be a good segue into the Anunnaki stuff that you did want to get into.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, I was just gonna talk about, you know, the origins as far as we know it now of like written writing and communication. That would have been modern day Iraq, Mesopotamia, the breadbasket of the world. And I mean, that's where these tablets were found with ancient wedged writing called was it cuneiform, I believe. We learn about it in school. And within these tablets, they contained many stories, and these stories are like far beyond any modern science fiction novel. From the
From back
details
then.
that you can read in them, all the way from genetic splicing to wars of different races of aliens and beyond. But this is up to interpretation, and that's why it's been highly controversial for years and years and years. And then before that, suppressed information. And a cool fact, when we declared war and went into Iraq and bombed Baghdad for 3 days, when we went into all their museums, it was only and solely to procure all of the ancient Sumerian artifacts in these tablets
Wow.
full of wealths of information. And they essentially talk about the origins of man. And one would say that this information has later trickled down into our various different religions or is adapted into several different religions, from Christianity to Buddhism and Hinduism. All share likeness with these stories or connection in different various ways. So and it goes all the way into the creation of Earth, right? So as far as my understanding of it is, before there was Earth, there was other celestial bodies, and one of these celestial bodies was comprised of these beings known as the Anunnaki, who are angelic like people, like the prime form of all man, almost giant like angels, can heal, you know, their cuts, or even like grow wings if they needed to fly, like with their superior in every dimension, but within our image, you know, so like the God of gods. And it was a planet had crashed into their planet, which would have been a catastrophic event, but somehow they were technologically equipped to handle such an event, where they were able to make plans throughout this devastation occurring. And they deployed 1,500 of their best. I could be off on the number or even the story relatively, but they deployed them to Earth. And once they had gotten to Earth, they had a mission to harvest Earth for all of its precious minerals and materials and metals and such, but they didn't feel that they were ones that should be subjected to that kind of work. And they seen modern day Cro-Magnon man, and either through procreation or genetic splicing or both, that gave birth to mankind.
So basically,
And
we were like slaves.
yeah, they wanted to develop a slave race, and that would have been the entire human race, who is then used to mine the planet. And today you'll find these ancient mining systems that date back far beyond they should for even
I mean, that would
humans
turn
to
me
be
into
here.
having Egyptians build these pyramids. Like, who's to say that the pyramids were actually supposed to be tombs originally? They weren't just like the energy sources that we hear that they hold.
There's interpretations of the Bible. There's certain ways that the Bible's been interpreted to say that we were created by ETs as a slave race, and that we have the capability and genetics to be far evolved and advanced, but that we are kept down, and that this can be on an ET level, that we have been kept down. And that's why we all get, like, everyone has had like a flash of intuition or knowing or something kind of psychic or a dream, but it's only just that small, you know. So there's different narratives within extraterrestrials, that there's different disagreements on the things that should be done with mankind. Do we awaken mankind? Do we lift this veil, or do we not? Because there are energetic beings that feed off of our energy too, right? We create enormous amounts of energy. So there's a lot of narratives like that around.
Well, Jarrett, the story that you're saying kind of sound. Have you ever watched the movie Prometheus?
Yeah, that's like a prequel to like Alien and Predator, but it's almost just similar. Like this story. Yeah. And
as a really
even like
ancient
Greece or the gods of India and all that, you could say that they transcend throughout these stories, and then they all have similar stories amongst each other. If you read the Bhagavad Gita, it talks about like nuclear weapons to an extent to help the humans at one point in war. And it was like Krishna or one of those Hindu gods lit off this, you know, what could be described today as a nuclear weapon, just in the words that they had available. They said it was like a bow and arrow of some sort. But yeah, I mean, even the stories from Samaria, and then how they pour into all these different religions, or even into politics today, it's so multifaceted and chambered. We could spend hours, like chapters within chapters and chapters of this. But the only thing that I have read recently that may be origins beyond Sumerians was that they have actually found bodies frozen somewhere in like New Zealand, and they think they may be druids. But I don't think druids were supposed to be around that long ago, you know, because we're getting beyond like 14,000 years ago now. But these people they had found, they said, may have descended from druids. They had these tattoos in all the acupuncture areas of their body. You know, like
that doesn't coincide with the time or the area.
Well, we would think that stuff wasn't brought about in like feudal Japan or something, like acupuncture, or maybe even in India before that. Some people think that Jesus went and studied in India during that little amount of time that he was gone, and there's no accounting for where he was. You
know, it's interesting. Even they say
the Shaolin, like Shaolin Kung Fu, was said that like those practices came from an Indian monk in his travels that taught the monks how to defend themselves.
Have you passed through?
Yeah.
Yeah, they say even Jesus had said, you know, to his followers that it's too much, like your mind wouldn't be able to handle it. A lot of the information and the truth will have to be for your younger generations.
And that's why he spoke in parables.
Yeah, and like that when you learn the truth, your mind is going to first become troubled, right? So think about it. It is like what so much of that was left unsaid, and but those parables that, you know, it's something that's gonna it can be too much for your mind to handle. You have to like spoon feed it over the generations, and it feels like that's what's happening information wise. It's just, you know, you get a little bit.
I find it interesting. You know, not just the fact that like the Bible's in so much parables and it's broken down in a way that you wonder like, oh, why didn't they just come out and say it? But it's just because our minds weren't ready for it. Because just think of how much has happened in the last few thousand years. Like you would never be able to fathom what we have now back then. And that's also the same as like Nostradamus. He would see visions and he would have to try to figure out a way how to put what he's seeing into words, because even what he's seeing in his visions doesn't make sense to him. Like he saw something like 9/11, but if you've never seen a skyscraper before, how do you describe that? How do you
Right.
get down to somebody? The same that thing, if we had a premonition about 2,000 years from now, we would not even understand what we're seeing.
Concepts that concept things happening within concepts that people don't even understand. You have to first start stretching your mind to even learn these concepts, and they say too that, he spoke in those parables so that those who he didn't want to know wouldn't understand, and that those who seek him will find him. Like you have to actively seek the meaning to find the meaning,
Just
so
like everybody who
Some
watches
genius shit.
show is seeking something that's not being readily spoon-fed to them. And that's why we always are happy that everyone wants to, learn and wander and wonder with us. So we're gonna wrap up this March episode. We always thank you guys for coming on this journey with us. Again, special thank you to Turn It Up Live for making this all possible.
Turn it up.
Turn it up. Thank you, Jarrett, for always having some interesting conspiracies to chat about, and Sarah for your astrology review. And I will always keep bringing you guys holistic alternatives. All right.
Stay safe, everybody.
Stay safe. We'll see you next month.